Hello and welcome to Let's Play Remote Viewing Tournament for September 22nd, 2020. I'm Grin Spickett. Thank you for everyone who has recently praised my ASMR-like tones on the early episodes. It was not my intention to titillate you. In fact, I think that ASMR is probably only the... It was never my intention to titillate you. It was never my intention to titillate you. My soft tones were the result of trying to hide my voice from neighbors and my family. And it was never my intention to titillate you. I don't mind it so much, but I'm going to be recording under a variety of circumstances. Sometimes I'll be hiding my voice from neighbors and sleeping children. It was never my intention to titillate you. I don't mind so much, but it was never my intention to titillate you. It was never my intention to titillate you. I don't mind so much. I'm dealing with these feelings now, but I was just trying to hide my voice from neighbors through the floorboards of my basement. So I'm going to be recording under a variety of circumstances, which you may have heard if you've listened to some of my more recent episodes. You know, I think ASMR is probably the only thing on the internet a little bit weirder than what we're trying to do. Whatever we're doing with remote viewing, we're not eating Barbie shoes and purses for an audience. So, something came through my email yesterday from Marty Rosenblatt with the Applied Precognition Project. This is a long-running nonprofit that has groups of people attempting to predict market movements through associative remote viewing, not unlike what we do with the remote viewing tournament application. They've recently started promoting a feedback protocol, the positive feedback protocol, that basically says you only do feedback if you have a hit. If no hit, you don't do feedback. So Marty provided a chart of one person's change in results since switching feedback. The blue line is an inflection point for one user at around the 33rd session, after which their hit rate has gone up tremendously since switching to the positive feedback protocol. So what's the difference between positive feedback protocol and the standard ARV protocol? Well, the original or standard protocol was that the viewer would only receive feedback of the correct image. This, I think, was meant to train the viewer to the actual timeline, and that no matter what, if the choices were a flower and a donkey, and the flower was incorrect, they would never see that flower. That timeline would not be actualized. You wouldn't reinforce it by showing them a flower later. Hey, you got this wrong. You wanted the viewer to learn which future was right, so you only showed them the correct or winning image regardless of what they had viewed. The positive feedback protocol is where the viewer will only see feedback if the prediction is correct. That might avoid an association of emotional energy with losing photo. There are some people who feel that in ARV, if you see the losing photo, if you discuss the losing photo, if you make anything of the losing photo, if you share it with friends and say, look how great my hit was on this losing photo, then you're reinforcing the wrong pathway. You're tying either positive or negative emotional energy with the losing photo, and your subconscious doesn't get trained that they should only be giving you information about the winning photo. I don't know which one of these is correct, but I do know the positive feedback protocol is difficult to do, but it's possible with the remote viewing tournament. You know, I did it. I did it before APP adopted or recommended the protocol. For a lot of my wins in April, when I took first place, I did use the positive feedback protocol. So I'm going to try to do this from now on, and I'll try to talk you through it. With the remote viewing tournament, the way you can do the positive feedback protocol is by avoiding the pop-up to show you your results. What I would literally do is hold my hand over my screen when getting my results, and then hit the back button so that I would go back to the main menu of Remote Viewing Tournament without seeing my feedback photo. Then I would go into my history to see whether I had been correct or not. And if I had not been correct, I did not look at the photo. Again, I was doing this through one of my winning runs in April, and it might be worth a try for some of you. I'd be interested to hear whether switching over to positive feedback protocol makes any differences for you. I'd love to see it as an option with the Remote Viewing Tournament, but I know the developer has a lot on his hands right now. Having said all that, let's look at something here. This is my history, and I'm going to show you my very first Remote Viewing Tournament session. At the time, I had been doing only paper sessions with controlled remote viewing or something like it. I had impressions of rocky, yellow, and serrated, and I had an analytic overlay of a labyrinth, and then later a test tube, a turtle, or a shark. And I sketched out some little, almost looked like a panhandle or something, but I think the feelings of rocky, yellow, and serrated all came from this little marker ideogram here. So what was it? The correct image is of some structures built into a mountainside. It's rocky. There's a yellow tint to it. Is it serrated? Well, it looks rough. The rocks the rocks are not smooth in many places. They're jagged. And I think it quite nicely fits with the description of labyrinth. It looks like there might be a maze of tunnels inside, although that's not visible. There's multiple entrances into this cliffside habitation, and it's hard to tell what's connected and what's an independent home. So that was quite a nice hit, and it gave me a lot of confidence to start this process. Maybe misplaced confidence, because my record soon went to pot. Let's judge a few entries before we move on to today's remote viewing. I see a number 1. I see a weird jagged circle-like scribble and maybe a flat line that could be land, and some squiggles to the right of the jagged circle. At the bottom is a man holding, I think, a whip, but in a very strange way. He's wearing a tank top. At the top is an image of an old fort or castle structure and a roadside. The fence behind the road is making a straight line over the picture. And then the castle is beyond that on a grassy hill. I think that this image relates more to the top picture. There's a flat line that could be sort of the top of the fence, and then the jagged circle reminds me a little bit of the top of the fort as seen from above, if I can imagine that. It's not incredibly clear, but I'm going to go with the top image at a confidence of 40%. Ooh, okay. There's just like a whole bunch of squiggles, a vaguely circular area of it, and then another vaguely circular area, and then sort of a box-like shape around it. If I had any immediate impression, I'd say like a cafeteria tray with a plate and maybe a cup of orange juice, just like very, very sketchy and with little detail. The top image is of a chessboard on an angled perspective behind the black player. This chessboard, it's not black, it's like a dark brown, and the white piece is seen blurred out in the background. And the bottom is an image of a plate with watermelon, maybe some sort of cream dessert on it. Based on these shapes, I think there's actually quite a nice hit on the bottom. You have something that looks sort of like a plate. You have another little circle area. It's all very sketchy, but if I was looking at the bottom image through smoky glass, maybe that's what I would see. I'm going to go with the bottom image with a good 80% confidence. Here we have a simple outline of a shape. It looks a little bit like the top of a church with a steeple, but beyond the steeple area is a circle with an outline that reminds me of maybe a light like the sun and sun rays, or maybe a flickering candlelight and the sort of halo around the candlelight. Let's just see what the images are. The top image is of an insect like a dragonfly on top of a leaf. It's a close-up. And the bottom image is an old building with a decorative sort of dome on top. And I don't know what that's called, the point on top of a dome. But if I was going to pick one of these images, I'd go with the bottom image because there is a feeling of a skyline or an outline of a building. And there's no sun visible behind it, but there is, in this picture, but there is a sun there somewhere lighting up the scene. I'm going to go with the bottom image. I'm going to give it a 50%. One more for this morning. Okay, I'm finding this is an interesting exercise in how to describe an image out loud. There's like a bouncing line. Like if I was drawing on a number line and going from number to number, helping my kids with stupid distanced learning, I might be drawing that bouncing line shape. And then there's a squiggle above that. It gives the impression of maybe the underside of a bridge. At the top we have a bat. It's just a bat with its wings spread, and it has that sort of bouncing line shape underneath the wings. Almost the same motif. This looks a little bit like a single wing, but stretched out, like they didn't know where to end the drawing. Very interesting. And the bottom is the inside of a subway car, I believe. I think the resemblance of is so similar to the essence of a single bat wing here, just elongated with extra area underneath it. I'm going to go with the top image. Very high. I'm going to give it you know what? I'm going to give it a 10. What a treat. Okay, so to get in for today's round, I'm going to try something different. I'm not going to be drawing the target number anymore, so I have less to block out on my screen. I'm going to try something. It's Gary Langford's 1986 CI method, which involves saying the word target or saying it in the mind and getting a visual bit, and then waiting about 30 seconds and doing it again and doing it again, writing down a single impression, maybe if one comes up immediately. And over time, the visual bits are supposed to get a little bit more complex. I don't usually operate in a visual mode, but I'm going to give it a shot, although it might not be too interesting to watch, so I may just fast forward to the result. Okay, we're back. So it started with an image of, remind me of maybe a hut or cave entrance, then with some depth I'm adding on to it, then back to sort of a house shape, and then I'm not really sure what the last two are like, but it seems sort of structural or architectural in nature. So let's see what the two description choices are. The first is a baby girl in a driveway wearing a Peppa Pig shirt, maybe. Her head has a hat with pom-poms. In the distance there's a fence. That doesn't sound great to me. Next is a wooden tray with raised edges on a white tabletop. Bottom of the tray is covered with a white sheet of paper. There's a sandwich in 4 wedge-shaped pieces. There's a rectangular metal basket with white paper filled with yellow French fries. Beside the tray on the table are 2 tall, round glasses, half full of water. There's a floor with a pole sticking up. So far, because this has rectangular and structural elements to it, even if it's close up to like a tray and so on, I think that's a better match for the quick visual impressions I had. Going back to it, they're sort of angular shapes and tray shapes. You know, I'm not overly confident because I don't normally work in this mode, but I'm going to go with the bottom image, and let's give it a 100%. What the hey? We're all in, okay? We are all in. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again for the results.